Thank you. USA, 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 USA. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. My name is Bill Post. I'm the state representative from Kaiser, St. Paul, and Newburgh. I work in the Marble Nut House. I'm a Republican in the super minority, so I really don't work a whole lot. I just sit around and say, no. But I'd like to take a moment. I think this is really important, and if you would, join me. I think we need a moment of silence for two very important things. Persons. First of all, our late Secretary of State, Dennis Richardson, who was a staunch defender of the Second Amendment, and also for all the veterans that are not only here today, but especially those who can't be here today because they paid the ultimate price. If you don't mind, I think a moment of silence is proper. Thank you. So I had this thing where I talked on radio for a long time before I became elected. Why I did that, I don't know. Haven't figured it out yet, but we're going to get back one of these days. I want to talk to you about the way the media and the left have taken away the talking points on violence, because that's what everybody talks about, right? It's one word, gun violence. I always thought it was just called violence. When people do something naughty to somebody, it's violence. And I go all the way back. I'm a biblical kind of a guy. Not historically a biblical person, but I like the Bible. And one of the things that struck me was, does anybody remember what the first act of violence in the history of man was? Cain and Abel, a rock. So the local newspaper, the Jericho Times, on the front page it said, rock violence today. Just outside the Garden of Eden, where we can't go in anymore. You don't hear that, right? When do you ever hear rock violence, knife violence, car violence? Oh, but it's gun violence. So my problem is they've stolen the language. Violence has always been a part of mankind's history. I don't think it's good. I think it's horrible. Again, from a biblical standpoint, if you remember, if you take a look at Genesis 5 and 6, God destroyed the entire world because of violence. He said every inclination of his heart is evil, talking about mankind. So we are a violent people. But here's where we bring in the Second Amendment. Constitutional writers back east in the 13 colonies, and those who wrote our Oregon Constitution 100 years or so later, they wrote a couple of things. The Second Amendment, and they wrote the Article 27 section of our Oregon Constitution because they knew that tyranny and violence go hand in hand. Tyranny begets violence, and we have to protect ourselves from violence and from tyranny. And that's why I will always defend the Second Amendment, and even more so if you're an Oregonian, Article 27 of our Oregon Constitution. It is strong. It says for the defense of the people. The defense of the people. So when you have people that come to you, whoever they come from, and they say, oh, it doesn't say anything in the Second Amendment about having an AR-15. The Oregon Constitution says defense of the people. It doesn't define what that means. Defense of the people. Violence is not going anywhere. In fact, it's going to get worse. Violence is going to get worse because that is man's heart. So what do we have? We don't have a gun problem. Guns have been here for hundreds of years. We have a heart problem in America. We have a problem. I'm going to tell you what the answer is. Now, some of you may agree and some of you may not agree. I believe if we turn our hearts back to God, we will find peace. If we love one another, if we teach our children to love one another, if we teach our children to obey God. God's a pretty smart guy. He knows what was good for us and what's best for us. The second thing I want to talk to you about is young people. Those of you young folks that are here, and you can define what young is. Of course, me compared to that guy over there, I'm young. But young people, become journalists. Infiltrate the journalism. Take over and start telling what really goes on. Wait and see what happens today. Remember, there'll just be a couple hundred of you here today. That's what will be reported tomorrow. Become politicians. Now, I know, before you freak out, but get in there. Get in there. Get young people. Start working up your way to getting, not that that's a higher calling, but what I'm saying is start with your school boards, your fire boards, your water boards. Get elected. Then you can start making a difference in a place like that over there. Lastly, to everybody, civic engagement. I want to be really honest with you because that's the way I am. If you send those blast emails that are already written for you and you just say, Bob, and you send it to all 90 of us over there, I'm just going to tell you, they don't do any good. And here's why. I want you to take a minute and say, Dear Bill, and write what your heart wants to tell me. If you send those blast emails, they generally kind of get ignored because it's the same email over and over and over, and it says, you guys. And I say, wait a minute, what about me? What about Dennis Linthicum? What about Kim Thatcher? What about Fred Trott? We voted no on all the gun bills. So don't send it to me. I mean, I want to hear from you, but, we voted no. So take a moment and write it. Take a moment and sit down and say, Dear Representative, or just say Bill with me. I don't care what you do. But just write, Dear Bill, this is my concern and here's why. When you send those just pre-coded, handwritten, whatever emails, they're just not as effective. Be personal and talk to us. People want to listen to you. So that's my advice. Civic engagement. Show up over there at the Nut House and make your voice heard. You've done it partly by today. I know there's nobody over there today and there was some confusion of will we hear anything? They will hear you. Just trust me. They will hear you. All of you that are recording this, make sure you put it on your Facebook pages and your Twitter pages and your Instagram pages. Make sure you tag other legislators from this building. Make sure they know you were here today to defend the Second Amendment. God bless America, God bless Oregon, and God bless you.
All right, big thank you to Bill over here. That was incredible.